but there's some big differences in terms of what is happening under what can be called a military dictatorship under whatever guise, for whatever religious or other purposes, nonetheless perpetrating all kinds of violence on populations, indigenous populations, populations that they're operating among, and including things that are far more barbaric than ever happened in many parts of the world in the past, actually. It's astonishing on that level. But there's a big difference, because when girls are kidnapped in modern wars and forced into marriages or just sexual anything or any kind of abuse, that's what's happening. But what happened in terms of concubinage in the past wasn't like that. There was certainly violence at the time of the capture of the woman, but the whole interest, if it was a young woman who was attractive, it was to keep her, as healthy as possible, because she's going to bring a big price in the market. And but what happens to her? She doesn't have any choice in who's going to own her, and theoretically, and therefore she could be subjected to all kinds of physical and sexual abuse. But when you look at the reality, it wasn't quite like that. And the reason requires a little bit of logic. A wealthy man who might have, first of all, before even almost having a concubine, he almost certainly would have 4 wives. And with 4 wives, a bunch of children. All requiring his personal time, very clearly. So I just want to add up to 24 hours in the day. I'm not going to assign a number on that component of the situation. Well, let's say the same man has 10 concubines. Well, you start thinking, when's he going to sleep with them? What slot in the day is free? Because first of all, you have to understand, there's no slot at night. At night, the man's time has to be with one of his 4 wives, or 3 wives, or 2 wives, in succession, equal amount of time, and all night. And the reason for that it was because of the necessity of bonding between father and children. And every mother wanted to make sure that daddy was around maximum time that was her allotted time. And if he violated this rotation, it was really subject for divorce, so that he couldn't play favoritism and run off with a sweet young concubine he just picked up. When? The only time you can sleep with a concubine is during the day, during some siesta in the day. Well, then you get back to the whole issue of time. When does the poor guy work? He's a wealthy merchant. He's got to work sometime. He just can't be hanging out with all his concubines and his wives. So people don't have a sense, and there's a male fantasy component that sometimes takes over in talking about concubines. But those women, in many ways, were protected. They're protected by law. They were protected by the fact that if they gave birth to a child, then the father that was his child. And unlike slavery in the Americas, very different, where the father of a child by a slave would be considered to be a slave. It's just the opposite. I mean, among Muslims, this is just can't be explained. I've heard it said. I've heard Muslims say, "How can a man deny his children?" What kind of a man is that?